So how's everybody doing? Good, good. So we're going to talk a little bit about markets, if that's okay with you.
That's what I thought we were talking about. It's all good.
Long way, first of all,
Yeah.
from 2008 when you started your company.
Yeah.
With your mom?
Yeah, it was
Kind
just
of
me
it?
and my mum.
Your mum?
Because my mum's the only person that I didn't have to pay. So it worked out really well.
It did, right?
Really well, yeah.
She's doing okay?
She's brilliant. She is 81, the most stylish, optimistic, fun to be with person of anyone that I know. And just perfect taste. She criticizes a lot, but I mean, it goes with the territory, so it's fine.
Yeah, probably good to have right next
Yeah,
to you.
she's really
Somebody
good.
you can trust.
Yes.
Truth.
Her favorite saying at the moment is, "Julie, your life is passing you by."
Oh, mothers and daughters.
But apart from that, she's very, optimistic.
That's our next Bloomberg Breakaway Summit.
Yeah,
Mothers
my
and
mum can
daughters.
come to that one.
So let's go back to 2008. Nice timing, financial crisis,
Yeah,
getting to
I
its
timed that well.
peak. No factory, no suppliers yet. You have an idea, an urgency. You have a need to pay your kids' private schooling. No investors, just 600 pounds, you and your mum.
£600 is not nothing.
That's true. That's true.
£600 is not nothing.
Right.
I know that, in the world
And
of,
forgive me, in a
seed
world of
funding is probably
inequality,
not
I shouldn't be
a
that
lot.
insensitive. No, you're right.
It's not insensitive.
Yeah. But 600 pounds.
Yeah,
And you created a company. Take us back there.
yeah. So it wasn't really that I had my eye on global markets to do with timing. It was more that my daughter was getting bullied at school and had all these bruises on her arms, so I needed to get her to a different school.
Hence the urgency.
Yeah, that's urgency. So it was seeing her going through such awful times, seeing her literally kicked on the floor at one point, that it was the end of the summer term, and I said to her, "Don't worry, you're not coming back here." So that's when you have urgency, because you can't say to your daughter, "You're not coming back here," and then
She's how old?
hope that she's forgotten and take her back.
How old was she?
She was 8. She was 8, and her brother was 6. And so, yeah, there was a sense of urgency. It meant that I had the school summer holidays and £600 to create something that would sustain a £12,000 a year school bill for 2 people. Because you can't not send the brother, because then he'd hate her forever. And that's not healthy. Oprah
I have
would
4
say
brothers.
that's
I
not
know how
healthy.
that
It's not healthy. So, yeah, and school fees, that's after tax. That's the money you take home after tax. So
Right.
you have to earn a lot more.
So you have this idea.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't actually have an idea. I just had a need. I think that's the thing. And so I had to go home and sit at the computer and create an Excel spreadsheet called "Things I Can Do to Make School Fees" .xls.
What were the other ideas?
So I just came up with a list of 10, because 10's always a good number for a list.
Where were bags, satchels?
Well, they were all, the positioning wasn't important at that time. It was all in the sort of the ranking of the columns. Sustainability, can you start it with £600? Would you get enough money fast enough to meet school fees? If I died in the process, would it be something that would be ongoing? Because I didn't want them to lose their mother and go back to a bad school. So it's quite logical.
Oh my God, I
Yeah.
need a therapist right now.
Oh gosh.
This is pretty heavy stuff.
No, it's not. It's just, what happens, isn't it? You just got to crack on.
You just do.
Yeah.
Which is such a sensibility that I got in reading about you and your conversation. And we'll get into that, but you really do, logic has guided you in creating your business.
It's all about logic. Otherwise, I don't really understand it.
So when you think about markets, this is what this keynote is about.
Yeah.
Did you do any kind of research about bags and satchels and try to understand?
Well, no,
okay, was
because
there a
I
need?
didn't have masses of time, and I knew that I needed to have on my list of 10 things, because I gave myself half an hour. I'm very time compulsive. So it was like 15 minutes to create a logo, 10 minutes to come up with a brand name, half an hour for a list of 10 things. So, because it's good to be efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing like I'm a journalist, nothing like a deadline.
Love it.
It gets things done.
Exactly. And so satchels were on there because I was just sick of having to buy bags that didn't last and they weren't sustainable, or you couldn't clean them and they looked awful, and then you were back at Sports Direct buying some cheap thing with a nasty zip that wouldn't work for very long and had High School Musical on it, and then they wouldn't like it a month later, so you'd be back getting another one. You know, and so I just didn't want to keep buying.
Right.
And I had a school satchel, and I had it right the way through school, and it sort of looked better at the end than it did at the beginning. And I just thought, there are some things worth thinking about. Your school bag isn't one of them.
All right, so then you finally do.
Don't quote me on that one, because my business is like based now on satchels. So.
So buy more.
Yeah, exactly. So the school
Have
bag
you
is
used
actually
one?
definitely worth thinking about.
All right, so you decide to move forward with this.
Yeah.
I mean, you did everything. You coded your first website. You
Yeah.
didn't know how to code, right? You learned?
No, I learned.
You learned.
It's nice because it's quite logical.
And you figured it out.
It's fine.
Factory, manufacturing. Like, what did you do?
That was a trickier one. That was a trickier one. So
You actually got persistent, right, in finding your first manufacturer.
yeah.
Kind of, you found a shop that you liked.
I was really irritating is what you're getting at, and I think that that's probably fair.
But it worked. So,
Yeah.
so you found a shop that you liked.
Yeah, and I think the thing with manufacturers, well, it's the thing with me that I've realized over the last 10 years, is I'm actually really poor at communicating certain things. So I think that everyone sees things the way that I see things, and then I'm irritated when they come up with something different. And it's because I haven't explained it. Took a long time to get to that point. And so in my head, I was thinking, school satchel, everybody knows what that looks like. So why are people being so awkward and not? And so in the end, I was so frustrated, I sort of made this. See, now you come into this kind of world and you know there's names for things. So it's prototype. I made a prototype. It was 2 cereal boxes covered in brown paper with sort of like buckles done with a Sharpie on the front. It's like, I want one of these. And you'd go around and you got used to things like, if they said they were artisan, it meant it was going to cost too much and I wouldn't be able to sell it. And so I went around, but I needed to find someone really who properly made them, not as one-offs.
Right.
And so I Googled school satchel, and it wasn't on the first, like, I went so far back in these pages, further than, you know, I've ever
It's
been.
like a rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh. And then in the end, I found this school in Scotland that mentioned school satchel in their uniform. I thought, yes, this is what I want, score. And so I phoned them up and asked for their outfitter's name. They gave it. And I phoned them up and I said, I need satchels. Can you supply me with satchels? And he said, no, I only have 24 a year.
What?
The concept of scaling wasn't big on his mind, I say. And I said, well, can you tell me where you get them from then? Because I really need to sell a lot of these to make school fees. And he said, no, I'm not telling you who my manufacturer is. And that's really smart. I mean, why would you do that? But there's kind of like this rule of the person who wins in this circumstance is the person it means the most to. Mm-hmm. And on this, it was like, I get to send my daughter to school where she doesn't get bruises, and he just doesn't want to tell me the name of his manufacturer. So this was never going to win on his side. And he could have saved himself a couple of really miserable days if he just realized
But your method was you just kept calling him.
Relentless. And so he's a school outfitter, and so he's got this shop in Scotland. And so from the moment he opened, I would call him like every 22 minutes. With a different question, and I'd be so disruptive. And so I'd phone him and say, what color are the satchels? And he said, I sell brown. And I said, is that dark brown or light brown? And it was just to disrupt him. And he said, it's just light brown. It's like a chestnut brown. Chestnut brown, oh. So I put the phone down. And then I'd phone him next and say, yeah, and I had my timer going. And it's like, how would you describe chestnut brown? You know, because I'm totally, and then 22 minutes later, it's like, do you do black? You know, and then do you do red? And the whole day, the whole day. And I was like deeply annoying. And then the next day I phoned up and straight in there with what size is the satchel? It's 14-inch. I'm thinking maybe 13. 13 would be a bit better because 14 can be a little overpowering. And then I'd phone him back. And he lasted about 3 hours into that day. And then he just said, how long are you going to do this for? And I said, it's the really strange thing is that in my heart, I know I have thousands of questions. But when I phone you, I can only ever seem to think of one at a time. And then he just gave me the name of his manufacturer.
He said, here it is.
Yeah, and he was quite ungracious, actually. He said, here, go make his life a misery, which I didn't think was really sort of nice, but probably warranted.
You got your manufacturer.
Got what I wanted.
So tell me about expansion. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I do, because at one point you did have to expand. You got a new manufacturer, but then you found out that manufacturer was copying your bags.
It was hard because I had the first manufacturer, and there was something to do around health and safety because I had 4 UK manufacturers that were quite small. Each one of them would not go, they couldn't really make more than about 150 bags a week. And I had come up with this idea of sending fluorescent bags to New York Fashion Week on bloggers so that when the lights went down and they sort of took the photo, the bag would pop out from everywhere. And then the New York Times said we were the street style of New York Fashion Week, and I had 16,000 orders on the website.
Like that.
And I had 4 manufacturers, and they could all do 150 bags a week.
So I'm going back to the math that Anne talked about. That doesn't work.
No, that
so
one
you
doesn't
had to,
work. That was a challenge, that one. So I talked to the Department of Trade, and they put me in touch with a company that were having real problems. They were about to go out of business, but they worked in leather, in footwear. And so they had a lot of the same machines, the post machines and some of the same machines that they need. They started and they really wanted to ramp up. So this was good, the 150 a week thing. This was really good. And they knew that I had 16,000 bag backlog. And so they were really on board. They could see the potential for that. Within 3 months I was buying everything. I was buying, because they had no money and they were about to go under. So I had to pay for the bags as soon as they arrived. And I bought all the raw materials and they just paid the staff. Within 3 months, I found out they were taking a large percentage of the leather I was buying, making bags with my knives to the patterns and hiding them in a lockup across the road, and then trying to launch a brand that was all based on our brand. So that was an unforeseen circumstance, let's say.
Talk about learning on the job.
Yeah.
That manufacturer you mentioned to me when you went after him, and I know there's litigation involved, he said, you've got no other choice. You're just a stupid woman.
I know.
Don't know
That really
about
irritated
manufacturing.
me. That irritated me. I went to Cambridge when I was 17. I'm not stupid. So that really, he pushed my buttons on that one. And I think that as soon as I knew he was doing that, I just can't deal with people that I can't trust. You know, that's a huge, massive, massive thing. And so I had to go down and get all the leather out of there, and then deal with kind of the issue of where am I going to take it? Where's the manufacturer going to come from that's going to deal with this massive backlog of orders that I've got?
Here's something amazing. In 3 weeks, you opened up your own factory.
I did, because he said I didn't have a choice, and I disagreed with him on that. So I took all but 2 of his workforce and set up a factory.
Well done.
Well, he was wrong, because our factory now does 10,000. We can make about 10,000 bags a month. And that makes us the biggest bag manufacturer in the UK. And so I think that you do always have a choice.
It's a great lesson. Tell me, for our group here, scaling up, you know, what's your advice about scaling up? Sometimes you can plan it, sometimes it just happens. And I think in the fashion business, you can often go from not well known to all of a sudden you're known overnight, and you have to scale. You know, how do you, any advice?
Yeah, I didn't do scale up well at all.
Okay.
I mean, startup, I did well. Startup, I was just going with my instincts, and it worked, and I did that really well. Scale up, I didn't do well. So I was lucky. I got investment from a really, really good place, really good VC. But what I didn't do well was at that point, I think in going through the investment process, I lost my self-belief. I lost my sort of self-confidence. And I thought, now I need to pass this to people who know how to scale up, whereas I know how to start up.
You separated them from startup to scale up.
Yeah, I did. And I just sort of thought that, as a founder, I need now to trust people who have done it before. And that was my mistake, because that's, it's not right, because they might know how to scale up before. Or maybe they don't know how to scale up before. Maybe they just worked at places that were really big and had a big turnover,
right,
and big teams and huge budgets and brought in loads of overhead, which wasn't my intention, but was the effect.
It was something you said to me that struck me in terms of bringing in this outside investor. It was 5 years after you started. I think it was 2014.
Yeah.
You said,
after our Vivian Westwood collaboration, which was, as part of the startup rather than the scale up.
You said, because it was of the size that I didn't want to be the only person that it came down to, needed support, strength on my side of the table.
Yeah, and that's stupid when I look back on it. When I look back at at the worst point, our backlog was over 30,000 bags. And I was starting a factory from nothing. Why did I think that I then, didn't know what I was doing?
It's interesting, right?
It is interesting, and I think that there is the thing of, I'm really hopeful. We're in final stages of getting another investment at the moment, but this time I sort of feel like I know what I'm doing, and I'm an integral part of the journey for this next part, and I'm not willing to trust anything too much and just step back too much, even if somebody has done huge things at Net-a-Porter or whatever.
Right.
It's just different budgets. And I think as well that I know that I started Cambridge Satchel with £600 and we never had debt, ever, never had debt. And for 5 years we had no investment. We didn't even have an overdraft. We had nothing.
Yeah.
And grew it to a company that was worth 40 million, and no debt. And I think that I know now that I don't like debt. I can't be a company that focuses just on growing turnover, even if it means discounting and then just having loss making and thinking you're successful. I can't do that.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense. It's not logical.
And I thought it was interesting what you said about, you've learned that in many ways you have the advantage of not having been part of an established brand and industry, to not come from that background, because it made it so easy for you to say, why would I do that? It's not logical.
Yeah.
Which is really refreshing. Right?
Yeah, which is, and this is the thing when you have people that are very, very experienced in their areas, and they come in and say, this is the way it's done, that it can be a bit, it's like, oh, that's the way it's done. Okay, that's why I've got this person. But that's the way it's done, and then going to a catering place where they come out with all these things for a party, a launch party that I didn't know. I didn't know you were supposed to pay guests to come to your party.
Because in the past you had celebrities who just would come.
Sophie Ellis-Bextor did all our records. She didn't ask for any payment.
Right, or the goodie bags that all of a sudden you had to provide.
Goodie bags that you're supposed to pay people to come to your party, give them a goodie bag filled with so much stuff of such value to these people who already have more money than most of your customers, and then pay for a car to take them to their next party. It's like, why is that okay? That's not normal. It's not normal to have catering where they think that you need a theme and a fruit sculptor. When did fruit sculptors even become a thing? I know that I'm from South Wales, so the bar's different. It's London and you get away with stuff. But, come on.
I don't get ice sculptors either.
No, but a man making penguins out of grapes isn't normal. And this is still the value of my mother. Okay. I can run things past her and she'll say, that's not normal, Julie, step away.
That is my favorite quote of the day already. No doubt about it. I do want to open it up for questions, but I do also want to ask you, before we do that, just quickly, China's a large market for you.
I love Chinese people.
And I do think...
And there's so many of them.
All right, second...
Great.
All right, second favorite quote.
Yeah.
But I do think, especially from the U.S., we keep these trade wars, and we do wonder, are we going through a decoupling where the world's going to be U.S. and associated with its allies and China associated with its allies? What is it about the Chinese market that you think companies, people who run their own
But the
business don't
thing is,
understand?
if we're in Europe, not in Europe, whether they're in China or here, they still need a bag. I mean, it's an irrefutable logic.
But you also, I thought what was fascinating is you talked to people on the street.
Yeah.
You talked about a mission you went on with Prime Minister Cameron.
Yes.
But you were talking to...
There's a high-level networking thing.
It's pretty she.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But you were
apparently.
talking to...
The woman in the cloakroom.
Yes.
Downstairs. Because I wanted to know if she was going to buy a bag that looked like, and I showed her my bag, if you wanted this bag, where would you go to find it? Because I wanted to know, is it JD, is it Tmall, where are they going?
To understand it.
Because I wanted to understand what normal people that don't know about fruit sculptors, normal people, where they would go to look for the bag, because that's where we need to be. And the people at the reception weren't necessarily going to be the people that...
And they told you, and she told you.
Yes, and then all the people behind the reception desk in the hotel said the same thing. So I knew I was right. And so that's really helpful. That's super, super helpful. I mean, going on something like a retail safari, that's another stupid thing. They call it, we'll go on a retail safari.
What is that?
It's when you get dragged around shops like you've never seen a shop before.
See, logic.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
I do want to open this up to questions. Does anybody have a question for Julie? Do we have the mics? I don't know where they are. Oh, please take the box. Perfect. Just quickly say your name and where.
Hi, I'm Sophia Cook. I'm Chief Exec for Ugo Food manufacturing. Hearing of a lot of very similar things that I'm going through. How do you recruit now, given that you've learnt a lot in your journey?
And recruiting is the most important thing. And I recruit now the way I recruited right in the beginning. So the first thing that you'll see on any Cambridge Satchel job advert is must like dogs. Absolutely must, because I take my dog to work, and if they don't like dogs, it's never going to work.
That's why there was a man in the bathroom.
He said he liked dogs. Clearly he didn't, because he was scared to come out of the bathroom, because Rupert was lying on the floor in front of the bathroom. So just leave him in there, and he can think about what it means to lie. And there is this sort of thing of you want people who aren't going to say ever, that's not my job, because I have embossed initials on bags from 10 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning because I didn't want anybody else to take that shift. And so if I'm willing to do that, I don't want someone who says, that's not my job, that's not my niche or whatever. Somebody who really, really roll their sleeves up. And
How do you find that out, though?
Well, I think you can, when you talk to people about even how they got to the interview, then often if tiny little things really get to them and irritate them, you just think, oh, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Or this isn't going to work because you're boring or you're miserable or because you're not going to want them around.
Right.
We have the tightest team. I would say the Cambridge Satchel team, and Becca's over there, so she's got to say yes now.
Hi, Becca.
But it's the people that you would want to spend time with, because they're going to be your team and you can spend a lot of time with them. So you can't all just put up with people. Your team is the most important thing.
And do you have a list, do you have a large list to choose from of people?
What, when we advertise for things? Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
No, but I think that you don't need a large list because you only need one. You need the one brand fit. And when Becca got hired for a job she didn't even interview for. I mean, she loved the brand so much that she interviewed for a job that really was clearly not it wasn't your thing. But, she just wanted to be seen. And I think that's the really important thing.
So when you find someone
those are the
like,
people that you want, and you think, that is just spot on, I need that person.
Right, I'll figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'll figure out what they do.
That's great, that's great. Let me come here first. Do you have the box?
Oh, I got to throw it.
Yeah, yes.
What's
whoa.
the box about?
It's a good thing it's
a
soft.
mic in it. And
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Charlene Chen, co-founder of a fintech company called Asa Finance. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's incredibly inspirational. So I find that as co-founders and CEOs, I'm a COO, one of the challenges that we find is how to prioritize your time and energy as a founder and as a leader and as a company. So, we're faced with crossroads where we could expand into a new market or a new customer segment or just double down and, penetrate an existing market. What were some of the hardest crossroads you faced, and how did you decide where to prioritize your energy?
So it's a really good question. I think that I remember when we had the the awful experience of sacking the manufacturer, having the 18,000, sort of 16,000, it went up to 18,000 backlog. Trying to start a factory, trying to pick my children up from school and read the Golden Key book, God. And customers constantly emailing in to say, where's my bag, because not once did it even occur to me to shut the website down, which looking back on it was interesting. And there were so many pulls, there were so many pulls. I think that for me, my children will always come first. So, I had to be there to pick them up from school. And I don't care if I work through the night, but I need to pick them up from school and give them fish fingers or whatever. And then I can work through the night because it keeps me grounded and stops me becoming a weird person. And then it was, I need to somehow, even if it's like a blanket email, just say, and just be totally honest and say, I'm really trying to get to this, but I'm focusing on the one thing that will get you your bag, and just be really clear that the only way to make all these horrible problems go away is to start a factory to make bags. Otherwise, because it's scary, right? You've already spent the money that these people have given you on their bags on renting sewing machines. So you've got to make the bags and get them done. And then once you've sort of sat logically and thought, this is the plan, this is what I'm doing, to just not give it another second thought and to put blinkers on. And if that means turning your phone off or whatever and just not looking at email or whatever, you just blinkers on and just focus on it in such a clear and determined way. Because you'll know that there's one thing that would make more of a difference than anything else. And then it becomes, are you willing to do a lot of different things that don't make a big difference, but maybe they're easier or more achievable or less scary or whatever, but there's a lot of those. But there is one thing, usually, that would be a game changer. And in my view, that's the one to go for.
I feel like that's a great way to end it. Julie, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.